Other than that, we are in Heart My Church. You might have seen these things going around. You guys look mighty good. Just saying. Now, this has been a great series. It's kicked off last week with I Worship. It was a phenomenal series, phenomenal message on worship, and I loved a few of his one-liner quotes. If you deny the undeniable, you replace the irreplaceable. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I love the God is obvious. For those of you who hashtagged God is obvious, that was pretty cool. We had like 6 or 7 people in here just hashtag God is obvious, because some things don't need to be said. He's just obvious. So that was kind of cool in itself. And this week we're going a little bit deeper, if you will, in iServe. Now, many of you would expect iServe to go right into Romans 12, I think it is. I put it on your bulletin underneath, dig deeper this week. That's a lot of how you serve. You know, everybody has different talents, everybody has different gifts. I'm sure that's where everybody thought we're going. iServe means pastor's going to get up and he's going to tell me why I need to be doing something else and why I need to be doing more and spending more of my time here and all of that. But we're going a little different direction. You know, that's how you serve. We're going to go over why you serve and who you serve. We're going to go over those things. And it kind of came to my thoughts. Actually, I have my notes right here. I'm going to even show you this. I printed them off, and within like 5 minutes of printing them off, I'm already writing on them. And your first one, this is what kind of came to me last night, because he talked about you will worship. Like, we will all worship something, right? We went through that last week. Doesn't always equal we worship God, but we all worship. Well, we all serve as well. And you will serve what your heart desires. That's your first one in the message guide to kick it off. I hope it's your first one. If it's not, it's somewhere on there. You will serve what your heart desires. That's kind of where we're going with today. That you will serve what your heart desires. And you're probably wondering, what do you mean? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I'm going to explain it to you. It's great. Like, you guys are so interactive today. I love it. But we're going to talk about that. Anybody ever seen the movie Rudy? Yeah. Show of hands. Good. Most of you. So I don't need to explain the movie too much, but I'll explain it a little bit. It's about a football player who's probably my size. He's like 5'0", 100 and nothing, although I'm a little more than 100 and nothing. But he's a really small guy. He wants to play defensive end. He wants to play for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Like, his whole goal in life is to be a part of Notre Dame. Comes from a hardworking family where, let's just be honest, you don't go to college, you don't get a degree, you become a hard worker, you work in a mill kind of factory back in probably the, I'm going to say 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't even know when that movie was made, but it was about a guy even earlier. And so he really was always told by family, you couldn't do it, it's just not going to happen, get that out of here. So what he did was he went to a community college right next to Notre Dame. He wanted to be there. He needed to get his grades up. He wasn't very good in school, wasn't a star athlete, yada, 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 you know. So while he's in community school, he does something that I would think it's hard for any of us to do. All right. The first thing he does is he's going to, I think it's Holy Cross, and I could be wrong. It could have been something else, but I think it's Holy Cross that he's going to. And he wants to be a part of Notre Dame. Now, that's kind of hard to do when you're not a student there. But what he does is he goes to all those different clubs and he tries to sign up. And he tries to sign up to be a part of the ones that deal with the football team. So the first thing he does is goes to sign up for the boosters. And they're like, oh, can I see your student ID? And he's like, oh, I'll get it to you. So the first game he does it. Afterwards he gets caught and realized he's not a student there. You can't be a part of the boosters. Now, he's volunteering his time to be a part of this Notre Dame. He just wants to be a part of it so badly it consumes him. So what's the next thing you do? You try to get a job there, right? Now, most of us would find a bulletin board or now hiring section at Notre Dame. No, he goes right out to the field, goes out to the grounds crew and says, I don't really care. I don't need a job. I just want to be a part of this. Just give me something to do. The guy's remark there was, you must be crazy if you're willing to work for nothing. But he wants to be a part of it so bad that he's willing to work for nothing. He's willing, his desire is so much to be Notre Dame through and through. You know, like the blue and gold or navy and gold, whatever it is. That's his passion. And his passion controls his actions. Which leads us to Jesus. Because does our passion for Jesus control our actions? Does our passion for Jesus control our actions. That's what we're going to get into Mark 3:23. And this isn't talking about our passions, but we're going to read it here. And it says, "So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. How can Satan drive out Satan?" Now at this time, Jesus has just cast out a demon, and they're saying, well, he must be demon-possessed to be able to cast him out. So why would Satan cast out his own demon, number one? Like he's doing the work he wants. He wants to disrupt things. So, but we'll get further. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with iServe? How does being divided have to do with iServe? The USA was a very proud nation when it was first formed. It was formed under Christian principles. We were one nation, and we were under God. That is the two things that I really don't see how anybody could debate. We had founding fathers who wanted this to be a Christian nation with the freedoms that come with Christian nation, meaning you don't have to worship Christ. But this nation is founded on biblical principles. It's founded on Christ. It's founded under God. And we were that one nation. We had one goal. We were solely sold out for that goal. If you wanted to come to this nation, you could come to this nation. We had no problems with that. Do you remember those days when immigration wasn't a problem? You went to Ellis Island. You got assimilated. You became an American. It wasn't a something else American, a Latin American. You became an American. You went through the process of language because we were one nation, one goal, and we were a thriving nation. Were we not? We were thriving. We were the fastest growing nation. We were powerful. We were everything that you want this nation to be. And then we became divided. Division kills. Marriages today, even in the church, but marriages today, division kills. We have more marriages end in divorce, I think. We might even be right about 50%, maybe a little over 50% in today's day and age, where marriages end in divorce because division kills. Self-interest and division get in the way of God's design. And it goes right back to when you deny the undeniable, you replace the irreplaceable. Our nation, our relationships, we've gotten away from serving each other and serving one goal, to where everybody can have their own goal. Everybody can have their own thing. And you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with iServe? How does division matter when we're talking about how I serve? Well, here's how it matters. We battle two things. There's two things we battle. Number one, we battle our flesh, and we battle versus the kingdom's goal. Those are the only two things. Now, it's not really a battle to go with the kingdom. That's where we should be going. But our flesh is battling against it. We have two directives. We go two different ways. We kind of have this separation, if you will, of church and life. You know, we hear separation of church and state so often. Well, let's just coin separation of church and life. Because that's what happens so often. We kind of separate where we serve. We separate how we serve. We can come to church and we can love on people there, but once we're out those doors, it's like flesh takes over. That hurting person that we see doesn't get a hug because our own fear of, what are they going to think if I just walk over to help a hurting person? And we kind of let the battle of flesh get in the way of your kingdom come, your will be done. Because if your kingdom come, your will be done was all we were focused on, would our serve look a little different? You know, would we be focused on the same thing? Would we be divided throughout the day? I kind of wonder, when I think about Jesus' life, what we would have come to the conclusion of if he only healed on Sundays, or if he only served sometimes and then decided against it other times and decided to love God part of his life. Yeah, that just wouldn't work, would it? And yet we're supposed to be Christ-like. We're supposed to be like Jesus, and yet we kind of have a separation of church and life. That division, the self-interest and division kills God's design. Self-interest and division kills God's design for us to be relational people. We are relational people. I don't know if you have noticed, but I like being around you people. Haven't figured out why yet, but I do. It's awesome. Just going out to eat with you guys is fun. Just hanging out at a barbecue, it's just, why wouldn't you want to be around other people who love Jesus? Why wouldn't you want to worship with them? Why wouldn't you, it just doesn't make sense. And it's because we get divided in our self-interest versus kingdom interest. And that's part of the reason why why we have that problem with iServe not being like it should. The next problem we have is you can't serve two masters. No one can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. You can't serve any idol and money. You can't serve, and money. You can't serve any idol and God. You can't serve your own self-interest and serve God. You got to serve his interest. You got to serve where he wants. My grandfather is a Army vet. He was in, I think it was World War II. I think he went to Panama. I think that's where he was stationed. But bleeds military. Bleeds military. Loves it. I think if I said, hey, I'm going into the Army tomorrow, he'd put me in his will and then take himself out just to pass everything down. He'd be that happy. Now, I don't mean that literally, but that's how much he bleeds military, that the military is everything to him. He knows what it was like to offer your life, and he kept it, but he knows those who didn't that he served with. And so when you have that connection, it changes your thought process towards things. He goes to, I think I've mentioned peace greeters before. If you don't know what peace greeters is, look it up. They serve the troops that come back over. They give them free gifts, free stuff so they can bring them home to their families. They greet them all. It's like a big cheering reception when the troops come home. Their treasure is in peace greeters. My grandfather's treasure, everything he does revolves around peace greeters. It's amazing how much you can focus on something like peace greeters, which really, when you think about it, doesn't love him back. If he passed away tomorrow, there'd be people sad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's pretty, I don't know if the word's famous there or something, but he's pretty famous there. Everybody, when you walk in, you see my grandfather, you see his really old raggedy vet shirt, his really old vet hat, and you see him carrying his dog that wears a vest with all these different patches that different people have come. And I guarantee you, if he ever comes back again, because he's come once before, if he comes back, if you ask him about the military, he'll tell you the one time that a chaplain came in and saw his dog, and his dog, I guess, gets down on all floors and rolls over, and then an army crawls towards him and stuff. And so he'll tell you that story because he tells it to everybody. But he's sitting there, and the chaplain gets down and takes off his little chaplain's thing and puts it on the dog and then says, you deserve some push-ups, sir, and does some push-ups for the dog. And I'm just like, it's kind of cool when you think about it and you're there, but then you're thinking, that's what you're serving. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for serving the troops, but we're willing to put our time and energy into the things that connect with us, the things that we're passionate about. Yet being passionate about God's church, God's people, is that where we're passionate about? My son Corey this week, I had a hockey game Friday night, and Corey came with me, and it's only Corey and I. So while I'm playing, Corey's in the stands by himself. Okay, so there's no help with this whatsoever, no premeditation, no nothing. There was just Corey and I. And so I'm looking for Corey in the first period. I don't even see him up there. There's only 3 people there, so it's not like it's, crowded. But, I'm looking, I don't even see him, and I guess he was sitting inside. And he comes out in the second period, so I see him, and I'm like, good, I don't have to tell my wife I lost my kid. But, so he comes out, and I see him talking to each person in the stands. I see him talking. I'm like, he doesn't know these people. Who? What is he doing? So now, of course, I'm not really paying attention to the game anymore. I'm wondering what the heck he's doing. So we lost, but that's a different story. So we get in the car afterwards, and I'm like, Corey, what were you doing? I saw you talking to some lady up there. He says, I was telling him about our church. I'm like, you were what? It's I was telling him about our church and about how we're doing I Heart My Church. He says, the next time I come to your games, can we get those little Bibles? I'm like, yeah, why do you want a Bible? He says, well, if they don't have one, I want to make sure they can go home with one. You're 9 years old. Man, I'm carry the 2. Am I 33 still? Is that what I am? I think I'm 33. So you lose a year every now and again. I'm not really sure where. It does. I'm getting old. That's weird. I'm 33. And could you, like, at your age now, sitting in a hockey game by yourself, would your first thought be, I need to go tell these people about my church? I need to get these people a Bible? It makes you wonder, are we consumed with Jesus? Are we passionate for Jesus? I always question. Sarah and I went back and forth when Corey wanted to be baptized, because I'm like, he's 8, 7. No. He didn't get baptized at 4 or 5. It was like 6 or 7. Oh yeah, we waited. He wanted to be baptized at 4, but even at 6 or 7, I'm looking at it going, man, do you know what kind of commitment you're making? You're telling people that you're living your life for Jesus. You're getting in this water and being buried to sin and raised again, and you're walking in a new life, and you're making that commitment at 6. Like, you don't need to be baptized yet. Like, I get it. I want kids baptized. I do, but I also want to make sure it's done right. I don't want it done for foolish reasons, or because they see mom and dad doing it, or because they think it's what we talk about. Like, I want it done for the right reasons. And then you see what he did Friday night, and you see where his treasure is. He could have gone up and said, do you like Pokemon? Right? If I go start a conversation with a stranger on the street, do I start it with, I love my church. I love Jesus. Jesus loves you. Or do I start it with, nice weather. Been rainy lately. Man, our treasure is where our heart is. Is Jesus our treasure? Now, my grandfather, he's so passionate about the military because he knew what it was like to offer up his life. He knew what it was like to just volunteer to die. Let's just be honest, when you joined World War II, you volunteered to die. That could be what happens, right? You knew what it's like to volunteer to die. Do you know what it's like to die to self in order to serve a greater cause? Do we know what it's like to die to self to serve a greater cause? And that question's hard to answer. We want to say yes. We do. We want to say yes. But I think we can answer it if we answer this next question on your message, okay? What got your attention yesterday? God or self? What got your attention yesterday? Will talked about last week that we will worship. It's not about worship on Sunday morning. This is a great time to come together. It's a great time to sing songs. It's a great time to just give your heart to God. But if he only gets it on Sunday, it's a house divided. It's a house battling two masters. So what got our attention yesterday? I'm going to give you an example because that's what my paper says I'm going to do. Tuesday night, Monday night. I always start preparing my messages on Monday. I get home. Monday's kind of a slow day, but Monday I'll wake up, I'll go sit on my porch, enjoy the nice breeze because it's really beautiful. And I'll sit out there and I'll just pray and I'll read different scriptures and kind of see where it's going. Normally we're in a book study, so I know where we're going at least in the next chapter, but we just, in this one I had no clue. And so I'm reading different scriptures and just sitting out there and on my phone Googling different things and praying. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I kind of think I know where this is going. Romans 12 is all about serving. That's Hebrews 10, 24 and 25 is telling you not to neglect coming to church and not to neglect serving with each other. Like, these are really easy things to get around, right? We're supposed to come together. We're supposed to love being together. We're supposed to serve with each other. We're supposed to help each other. These are all great things. You all have different gifts. That would be a really easy way to go. And so, but I wasn't 100% convinced that's where we were going, but it was a lot of what I was reading. And so Monday night I went to bed and woke up Tuesday, did some more reading. We came and did some stuff here and went back. And, Tuesday I was reading some more and I was just like, I'm not 100% sure, but it makes sense. It makes sense. So why wouldn't it? It makes sense. And then a saying I love to say all the time, but there's bad decisions, there's good decisions, and then there's God decisions. And so I went to bed Tuesday night, and I think God made the decision because it completely changed where we're going. But I woke up Tuesday night. Now, I went to bed kind of early. I went to bed at midnight. And so I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting there, and right when I woke up, I'm like, oh, that's what we're going to study, division, and how it keeps us from serving, and how no matter what we're going to serve, and we serve two masters. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, God, this sounds like a good message. I love hearing it. Like I kind of preach to myself every time before I do it. I have the weirdest situation on how I do this. I don't even know how I do it. It just comes. And so I preach to myself and I type it out. Well, I'm laying in bed. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning? So the first thing I said is, God, I love this message. It's hitting home. I understand it. We can't be divided. I understand we can't serve two masters. I get it. Like I love it, God. So in the morning, when I wake up, remind me, because I'll forget. And so I laid back down for a second. Then at 2:12 a.m. is when I walked out of the room, and I was like, this is what I wrote down so I wouldn't forget. But I wrote it down because of something, which, Sharon, I need to get you this. It's our invoice. You also get a message guide, just saying. But it left me with two thoughts on the matter, because it's 2:12 in the morning. Let's be honest. If you wake up at 2:12 in the morning, you're doing two things. You're rolling over and going back to bed, or you're going pee and then you're going back to bed. That's it. You really don't get up to do other things. But then I thought, this is where we get into the message guide. Do I get to tell God what time I serve him? Do I get to tell God what time I will serve him? Thanks for the message, God. Give it back to me in the morning. Do I get to tell God where I'll serve him? If we can answer those two questions, I think we'll get to the bottom of why I serve, or why I don't serve, or why I battle serve. Many people are going to watch this and think, why are they talking about volleyball? He says I serve a lot. But it's because no matter what we do, we are serving. No matter what we do, we're serving. And I wanted a house, and so what did I do? I went through the process of getting a house, and I let it consume me and take time and energy, and rather than just being like, if it comes, it comes, it goes, because I started serving the house. We wanted a house. We wanted to be settled, right? So we served that master. Can you battle two masters? Does God want to be battled against? We all know that answer. But implement your own battle, your own thought, your own passion. What battles God in your life? We get so backed up from these things. Do I really get to tell God where I serve him? I want to see if you know some of these people, because you're going to understand where we're going. Anybody? I love how you got the one that's a Patriots jersey too. Tim Tebow. That was pretty simple, right? We all know him. Professing Christian, football player, Florida Gator, Heisman Trophy winner, like champion, awesome. We love seeing him on the media because all he does is talk about God. He serves God. He can't help himself, can he? Love it. Awesome. Next one. A little harder because he's not in New England. Who? I heard it.
Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry. It's Steph Curry. He was just the MVP of the NBA. He was just the national champion or NBA championship team. They just won the championship not too long ago. Christian, self-professing Christian, talks about God, always thanks God. Every time he makes a shot, he taps his chest and just points up. Like, I love seeing it because it's on there. Andre Iguodala, I shared that story with you guys, I think, a little while ago when Andre Iguodala, who's been in the league for 10, 12 years, Steph Curry like 4 years, and Andre Iguodala said, when I grow up, I want to be like Steph Curry. He's a man of God. Like, that's powerful. Like, that's awesome to hear. Let's see if maybe you know the next one. This is a little less obvious. Churchgoers, you might get it. Rick Warren. I heard it. Who said it? Oh, we got a champion back there. Rick Warren. Rick Warren, he's an author. He wrote Purpose-Driven Life. He wrote Purpose-Driven Church. He's mega church pastor, founding pastor, I think it is, of Saddleback Church. I believe founding. I know it's Saddleback, one of the two. So Saddleback Church. Rick Warren, everybody loves Rick Warren, I think. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. Keep going. This one's a little harder. We're getting a little different. Who is it? Alex Kendrick. Anybody know who the Kendrick brothers are? No. Okay. Well, Alex Kendrick is a movie maker. Anybody heard of the movies? Maybe Facing the Giants, Fireproof, Flywheel, Courageous. They're just coming out with War Room, comes out August 28th. Alex Kendrick. Man of God, making movies. He wanted to make a movie on a $20,000 budget at his church. Thing went everywhere in Albany and Georgia. They made the next movie on a $50,000 budget, I think it was. Facing the Giants went nationwide, made Fireproof at a $500,000 budget. We hired Kirk Cameron. If you haven't seen that, it's about marriage. You got to see that movie. Courageous, we just watched it last night. Phenomenal movie, even bigger budget. Like, they're doing bigger and better things, and they do it for God. War Room's coming out. I can't wait for it. I don't know why we just promoted you, Alex Kendrick, but I hope you get this. Other than that, next one. You two be quiet. No, not you either. Anybody? This is the man I talk about a lot. His name's Steve Harness. He is the pastor of First Baptist Winter Haven in Florida. He mentored me for a few years in the office. Amazing man of God, doing amazing things, seeing changed lives, yet you've never heard of him. Go to the next one. Or a blank screen. Oh, apparently the one before this got cut off. Anybody know who that man is? We can just skip it. That's good. We're good. No, go to him. Yep, perfect. Him. Where's he going? Anybody ever heard of this man? Is that on purpose? Or are you just messing with me? Okay, this is another man I've talked about. His name's Jim Prose. He's the First Baptist Church of Elfers pastor. Amazing man of God. I love this man to death because I can relate to him. He just wants to serve God. He doesn't really care how he does it. He does it even when he doesn't want to because he's just consumed with it. Like, that's the impression that I get of Jim Prose when I see him. Is all these men have reasons not to serve. Tim Tebow took tons of flack for always mentioning Jesus on the news. Just keep your religion to yourself. But yet, no matter what, he's consumed. He's got passion. He can't help himself. Steph Curry brings a lot of media attention, always pointing to God, always sharing. He said there's amazing things going on in the Golden State Warriors locker room, all thanks to God. He can't help himself because he worships the Creator. He has to. Rick Warren, pastor of a mega church, doing amazing things for God. It's amazing. But these people are all famous. It's really easy to say, well, they're famous, they're really gifted. It's Francis Chan, it's Rick Warren, it's Tim Tebow. They have a platform. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's people next to you who can change your life. Steve Harness and Jim Prose, both of them had no reason to mentor me when you think about it. They're leading churches of, let's just say, 100 people at one church and 300 people at another church, and they have plenty of things to do. Why do they need to mentor some young kid who's going back to school? And why do they need to mentor somebody who was in the congregation, who didn't do a ton, who was just kind of going through it? Why do you need to? You don't. Unless you're really only concerned about one thing. And that's seeing lives changed for Jesus. Are we consumed with seeing lives changed for Jesus? It doesn't matter how old you are. Corey did it at 9 years old at a hockey game when there's only 3 people to talk to. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor of a church. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be an accountant. You can be a restaurant worker. Are you working for Jesus? If people saw you at your place, did they say, man, that's a Jesus follower? Good or bad? Regardless of if they love you or hate you, that person's consumed with Jesus. I don't want to talk to them anymore. They're so consumed with Jesus. But I work with them. I kind of got to, and I'm going to hear more about this Jesus. Are we that consumed? Is our serve that passionate about what we or who we worship? Because if we worship, we will serve. And now you're kind of thinking, well, does it really matter if I serve? I've read this verse before. It's my favorite verse in the Bible, or verses. It's a powerful thing when you think about it. And this is why we serve. You ready? Let's get into Matthew 25. Matthew 25, verse 31. We're going to go all the way to 41. But it says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. And this is talking a judgment time, people, at the when the judgment happens. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed. Now, those on his right, it's a place of exalting, if you will. It's a place we want to be. Okay, it will say, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. But then the righteous will say, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothed you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it for the least of my brothers, you did it to me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. I guess we could have left that out, but I wanted to put the right in there too, or the left in there. Because if we're separated, and the ones we served, we did it to Jesus because we served his people. We did it by God or for God, or God did it through us to others, however you want to say it. Okay, if we did that and we did it for Jesus, do you want to step into that court and be like, I didn't serve. I know I could have. I could have shared more about you, I guess. I really wasn't consumed with you, though. I thought I was. I thought I was passionate about you on Sunday. How many of us would that be the conversation, though? Like, Sunday, you get everything from 9 to 12. Jesus, you're my everything-ish. Man, that'd be a scary thing to walk into. We want to see changed lives, do we not? We want to see changed lives. That's one thing you'll hear me talk about every week. You're probably sick of this message already. But as Daryl Young once said to me, he said, he was telling me a joke, and we'll get to the punchline in a second. But he said, I got to my church, and I was there, and it was my first week at the church. And so I'm going to preach this message. It's a great message. It's kind of where we start. So I shared that message. So week 2, I come back to the church, and I gave that exact same message. It was great. I didn't have to redo my notes. I just got to bring the exact same message, and I brought my notes back, and I did the exact same message. And then he said, week 3, I came back. You know what? We did the exact same message. Week 4, he comes back. Elder stops him at the door and says, do you have something new for us this week? He says, you've kind of preached the exact same message week after week. Pastor said, absolutely. I will preach the next message when you start doing the first one. Man, do we need to be slapped upside the head like that sometimes, or what? What if we never moved on from worship until God got our whole heart? Even the parts where you're like, this is my whole heart, but God doesn't get this little tiny piece here. A whole heart. Everything. Every bit of you. Every last stinking piece. What if we didn't move on until that happened? Do we come back again and again? Or do we keep that stranglehold that stops us from worshiping and serving with everything we got? So many people say, I wish God would just pour down more on me. Yet their hands are closed, so they got nothing to receive. They're holding on so tight to what they want that they're divided against what God's trying to drop down. Man, do we have we given God our all, our everything? Does he get our every bit of worship, or does he get every bit of worship that we want to give? I want to give God my all, as long as it doesn't involve my... Right then and there, whatever went into your head, that's what it is. It is. It's the battle. That's what stops us from serve. That's what stops us from true worship. That's what stops us from really being in the presence of God, if you will. From really just having that connection in every moment of our lives. It's not about worship on Sunday. It's not about serve on Sunday. We need people to serve on Sunday. Because if we didn't, Marilyn would be down here with us and we'd never have anything up here. We wouldn't have anybody on the soundboard, and so we wouldn't have any music here. We wouldn't even need music because none of these people would be willing to serve. Could you imagine if nobody was willing to serve? We don't do it just for this church. We do it because he loves us. And that love is something we identify with. That love is something that changes us. That love is something that consumes us. That passion, that love, worshipers, true worshipers, can't help but serve. If you truly love something, you can't help but do it unless something's pulling you away from it, right? I can't help but preach on Sunday unless I have another commitment, unless I go on vacation that week, What is it that stops you from serving your Creator? We went through last week about worship. We went through denying the undeniable, replacing the irreplaceable. We went through God is obvious. And now we're talking about serving. And we're talking about serving your Creator. He died for you. The least we can do is live for Him. If He dies for you, and you truly understand that, and you truly, if He has your whole heart, it's made new. Not new leaf. Made new. Let's just sum this up real quick in a couple of questions. I want to really just enter this time where we go out, and when we leave here, we kind of know where we're going. So there are a few verses in there if you're curious as to how you serve, because how you serve is important. We want you to use your gifts to serve. Where you've been gifted, it won't feel like an issue when you serve. But before you actually emphasize the how, we want to know you really understand the why and the who and the what we serve. So a couple of questions, but number one is, have you served? I think we all know the answer to that is yes. We all know we all serve. But the question is who and what gets your serve? Have you been divided? Is that pulling you away from serving your Creator? And if it is, where's your true treasure? You know, if you had a treasure chest full of stuff, what's in there? Where's your heart if your heart is thinking of, what's that movie with the pirate people, Pirates of the Caribbean, chasing after the heart in the treasure chest? What treasure chest has your heart? Does Jesus have your heart? Does money, family, spouse, whatever it is, what has your heart? What is your treasure? What are you chasing? Because there's only one thing worth chasing. There's only one thing that'll die back for you, or has died back for you. Have you unknowingly put your flesh against the kingdom? And when you think about it in that sentence, that's pretty powerful. Because if we truly mean, Lord, your kingdom come, your will be done, how could we say that without us being a part of it? Your will be done, including us. Let's pray and then we'll dismiss. Father God, we thank you for today, God. I pray that our heart is fully consumed with you. God, that our focus and our desire is all just for serving you, our Creator. God, we all have different talents, different abilities, God. I pray that we just use those on a daily basis for you and for your kingdom, so that we can see this place changed for Jesus Christ. God, I pray you continue to work through us, continue to convict us, continue to change us, mold us, shape us into who you want us to be. God, you haven't given us a spirit of fear, as it says, I think it's in 2 Timothy, God, but a sound mind and a power. God, I pray that you harness those in us, that you mold those in us so that we can be powerful in our circle, God, so that people can see you through us, God, so that they see a reflection of your face. They see light and not darkness, God. I pray everything that we do is solely consumed in who you are. God, I pray this time is yours. I pray this week is yours. We pray for Shalia and her healing, God. We just pray that you continue to do work there, God, that you continue to just show your awesome hand in her healing. God, we pray for this time that we have an opportunity to give back to the Holbrook family, God. I pray that we are a church who comes together to just serve when there's a need. God, I pray that we continue to just serve others as we're serving Jesus, like it says in Matthew 25. God, I pray that we continue to be kingdom focused. God, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, we give you our week in Jesus' name. Amen.